right. It's the no doubt. Whoa, Ella. Wait, there you go. Okay. All right. A little jarring there on this Father's Day. Unbelievable. What a day it is.
Well, and speaking of Father's Day, we're going to start the show with something just a little different, and it's going to be really quick because we only have a second. But we have your daughter, Ava, calling in from Africa, and she's on here. I think we've been able to patch her through.
Ava.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
Hey, how are
I've
you?
always wanted to be on the No Doubt About It podcast.
Yeah. How's it going in Africa, Ava?
It's good. It's really late here. It's almost 9 p.m. I'm just chilling. I've been here since May. I don't know. I've been here for like 2 weeks.
Well, I think you've actually been there a little longer, but that's okay. That's no problem. Give us a quick recap for those of us who are interested in knowing just what have you been seeing and doing since you've been there on the mission trip?
Yeah, so I'm staying in a house with about 20 other people. Every weekday, or pretty often on the weekdays, we go out to the local college campus and we talk to the students there about God. And then we come back here and we eat home-cooked meals, which are all really, really good. And then we'll go out and do fun stuff, like as a group. We'll go shopping, or we'll go to do touristy stuff. It's been really, really fun. I've been doing orphanage a few times. I really enjoy it. That's the basic overview.
Okay, well, and we actually had you patch in today for a special Father's Day message. So anything you'd like to say to your dad today?
Yes. Hello. Dad, you are such a wonderful dad, and I'm sorry that I'm not there. I know that you have to have kind of a second-rate Father's Day with me being across the world. And I'm as wonderful as Ella and Mom are. I know that they don't. It's just not the same, and I apologize for my absence. I miss you, and I love you, and I'm really excited to see you just take off and soar. Podcast-wise.
Well, no, thank you, Ava, and thank you for taking the time from Africa to join us. That is very sweet.
Yeah, I'm really busy.
I know.
People really need me. But I'm here with you because I love you. So, well, you're welcome.
You are loved as well. Love you too, kiddo. And you're doing great work. Good job. Keep going to the orphanage. I know you guys have a lot of plans to do some more work there. So thank you for calling in, and we love you, and we miss you, and we can't wait to see you when you get back.
All right. I love you.
All right. Love you too.
Love you, kid. Talk soon.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, muchacho.
Okay. All right.
Oh, Ava, very nice.
Yeah, see, a little surprise for you.
Yes, thank you very much.
I know, it's hard when she's not home. I mean, we talked about it last night that it's been kind of weird to not have her here for so long. And
yeah, it is. It's definitely, she's getting ready to go to college. She's going to college out of state. So, she's going to be going to college in Virginia at Liberty. So she's going to be a ways away. So this is kind of a little practice run.
It's something.
Yeah, it is something. Yeah. We'll see how it shakes out. Ella, you hanging in okay with Ava not being around, you being the center of attention?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing well.
You're doing great. It's not a problem.
She's struggling real hard. Everybody.
Okay, of course. Now, I didn't line up the cameras right for the show, so we're going to do a little producing on the fly. So if you don't mind just tightening the shot up on me just a bit so we don't see random cameras in the background. See the camera in my background? Your camera?
Okay.
Your camera has made an appearance in my shot.
Oh, and that's heaven forbid.
Heavens. Yeah, well, you got to execute. So now what Ella didn't do was actually put up our shot so we could see how it looks. So she's going to take a guess.
She's just going to do it for you.
She's going to do it.
Okay, so why don't you give us a little bit of it, tell everybody what's going on the show now that we're kind of getting a little bit of a different start to the show.
Sorry, odd start to the show here. But a couple things. First of all, a story we have been talking about for more than a month, and that's the heat rule in New Mexico. Ludicrous situation. But enough people have stood up to the Environment Board and said, wait a minute, this is crazy town. What are you guys trying to do? That's starting to push back now. So there's been a decision delayed. And so we'll talk about that and what they're going to do. We're going to talk, the most of the show is going to talk about what is going on here with Israel and Iran. And it's a massive story. It really is. It's staggering to watch how everything has sort of changed since October 7th, 2023. And that chain of events has led to, I think, something that was probably unimaginable before that point. So we are looking at a regime in Iran that not only is going to eventually lose its nuclear capability, that's happening right now. And they're likely to completely lose it one way or another. But could the administration, not really the administration, but I guess the mullahs fall in Iran? It's a possibility. Okay, so we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what went on with the protests across the country on Saturday, the No Kings protest. I think you saw, and I will say, I mean, the vast majority of it was really quiet stuff and the kind of protests that there should be, no matter what your thoughts are on what they were protesting. But there was a few things got a little spicy, but we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And by the way, just so you know, we will not have a show on Wednesday. We have some significant obligations we have to attend to this week, but we'll be back a week from today. Right. So just realize that this show will be up for a week.
That's right.
And it was going to be a delicious
And
show.
if you haven't had a chance to watch some of our previous shows, because now this is officially our 201 episode, 201st episode.
201 episode? It's good stuff.
201, everybody.
Right.
201.
By the way, I want to give you some quick credit.
Yeah.
This is my Father's Day card. And yes, it does have a beaver.
It has a beaver. Your biggest nemesis on the planet.
That is my, yeah.
I found a card that had your nemesis on it.
Yeah.
It was either going to be that or like a Philadelphia Eagles card. I mean, I don't know which one you hate worse, the Eagles or beaver. So
well, no, beavers and we're respectful nemesi. All right, like all the beavers are my personal nemesi. The Eagles is not a good situation. It's not one of those respectful things.
What if I could have drawn like an Eagles little football helmet on the beaver?
Please, that would be a terrible combination. It really would be the worst of both worlds.
And and Ella, maybe at some point you could think of something to say to your dad about Father's Day as well. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we just gave it all the oxygen to Ava, but
I don't know if that's right now or later. Or I don't know what's going on.
Go ahead and say a few words to Dad.
Unlike Ava, I am here. I felt like it was more important for me to make an appearance than to be gone, so that's why I'm here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's more important to you, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
And thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being a great dad.
Okay. Thank you very much, Els.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's getting emotional in here.
I'm very emotional. I'm very into this.
Yes, I can tell.
We can always tell.
We can tell that. Thanks so much, Ella. Okay, let's get right to this headline from the Albuquerque Journal on Sunday.
Okay. Well, it basically is talking about this heat roll again. And it says extended process pushes hearing on New Mexico worker heat protection rule to 2026. If we don't have an answer for it, kick it down the curb, I guess. Is that kind of the
you
takeaway?
Get enough pushback, and all of a sudden, to the credit of people in the business community here, they've gone to the political types and said, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. So let's start breaking down this article. You've got a bunch of clips on it, and we'll just kind of walk you through it. But basically, and give you a little bit of a background here. So here's what the rule would be about, as stated in this article by Megan Gleason.
Okay, it says the rule would require a slew of control measures when the heat index, which is a measure of how hot it feels to the human body, taking into account temperature, humidity, and type of clothing, exceeds 80 degrees. The measure includes regular rest breaks, provided shade or cooled areas, free and accessible drinking water, acclimatized working schedules, and monitoring for heat-related illnesses.
Okay, and so a couple things. First of all, what you have here is a battle between people who have to live with these rules and activists who want to put these rules on top of business owners. That's the battle. So you have these activists who far too often in the state of New Mexico have been able to get lawmakers to do what they want at the expense of small business owners. That's how it works in the state too often. But I give some credit to the pushback on this because that's critical. And then maybe we'll see what the Environment Board does here. They've made some dubious decisions in the past, but hopefully they will make the decision that, wait a minute, we can't continue to heap on our business owners all these rules that are ridiculous and over the top. And it's not that you don't need to look out for people that are working in hot conditions. Everybody knows you do. But if you put out these rules above 80 degrees, on some of this stuff's craziness, and especially depending on the type of work that you have to do. And that's brought out in this article. So first, let's start with the activists who have no idea but just want more rules. And they had quite a quote in this story.
It's a no-brainer for Carlos Matutes, state director of the national nonprofit Green Latinos. Matutes grew up in San Antonio, working in the industrial light repair industry before traveling to South Texas to work in oil and gas industry and auto body shops. He says, quote, I lived working in extreme heat. I know what it's like to not be able to think clearly or maybe even make good decisions because you're so overheated. I know what it's like to feel so drained at the end of the day because you've been working in such hot conditions that you're not able to do anything, end quote.
Okay, again, while I appreciate the pure emotion of this and no logic whatsoever, the reality of the situation is that if this is all you're operating off, if it was hot when I was a kid in San Antonio, okay, I get it, but that's not a serious discussion. A serious discussion is, what line of work are you in? What temperatures are we looking at? What mitigation factors can we take to help people along the way to make sure we're good with this? All right. And again, is this a problem we've talked about before where people are just dropping like flies in all these businesses? The answer is no. But do we still need to make sure we're good? Yes. And Carla Kugler, who works with especially builders in New Mexico, right? Construction, New Mexico, brings up a very fair point as she starts to discuss all of this.
So she says industry officials agree that there needs to be heat safety in workplace, as Carla Kugler, president and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors of New Mexico, but they disagree on whether this is how the state should go about it. Quote, you can't afford to have your employees become ill from heat stress. We want to keep them safe. But the way in which the rule describes it, we're having a difficult time seeing how anybody's going to get any work done.
Okay, and what she means by that is, and we've talked about this on this show, you get up over 100 degrees, you start basically tipping the fact that, for example, oil and gas, great example. Road work, great example, okay? You go down to southeastern New Mexico, you have an average of 50-plus days a year where you have over 100-degree temperatures, okay? You're going to end up having people spending more time in the heat tent than they are actually working. Okay, so it's
and don't forget, it was like a liter of water every 15 minutes.
Every 8 ounces every 15 minutes. Yeah. You're just like,
and then you got to figure out how to get them to a bathroom faster than any time. Too.
Right.
You're just spending, like constantly.
It's just the balance is off, right? You're just pulling people out of the work, just with no thought of actual reality. It's just let's make a rule because I've never owned a business in my life. I have no idea what it's like to operate these people's businesses, but I'm an activist and I think you should do this.
And I would think that largely most people that employ people in the heat have a game plan to protect people from heat. It's like starting work earlier in the day, or maybe they work later when the sun's going.
Or overnight, all kinds of different stuff.
Those kind of things where the heat, they can manage this themselves. But yet we have an environmental group decides, hey, no, let's make some more rules and regulations
we'll do it
on
for
this.
You.
We're going to take care of this for you. I feel like maybe the environmental department doesn't have enough to do.
Well, or these activists who push them.
Yeah, it's
who push
weird.
them. And when you have an environmental board who doesn't understand what it is to operate business in this state, that you have to work together on this. And this is what I do like is Carla coming out with her comment, and then Jim Garcia, who does, has a similar take on this thing. And he did a really good job of laying this out. He works with the Associated Contractors of New Mexico, and Jim's been around this state forever with his brother. They understand these things. They're not activists. They're not trying to push, sticking workers out in, heat conditions that could get them hurt. Obviously, as Carla said in her comment, she's like, we don't want our workers out of the mix. We can't afford that. We can't afford our workers to be overwhelmed by the heat. Then they're not working. Mm-hmm. So they understand that same thing. So there cannot be this thought of, we're in direct opposition to the businesses on this. We're going to fight the businesses on this. The businesses aren't these evil entities that are trying to destroy their employees. They can't do anything without their employees. They get that. So if you have a cooperative thought in all of this, then it can work. But again, a lot of these activists, by the way, in the article, and you go read it in the journal, they're very angry that this is being pushed back because they want to stick it to businesses right now. Because A, they have no clue what they're talking about, and B, to them, this is about power. And if they have the power to stick it to a business, they will. But Jim Garcia says this.
This is, for example, he brought up a hypothetical construction project. 30 dump trucks are coming down the road, laying out 300-degree asphalt, which requires specific conditions to be laid, held, and cooled, he said. But suddenly, operations must come to a halt, he said, so workers can take that mandatory 15-minute break. He adds on, you are on a critical path for keeping up at that schedule, and if you don't keep up with that schedule, you're assessed late days, he says. How do you bid on a job knowing it's going to take you through the May, June, and July, August timeframe in a heat environment where you could be facing 90, 95 degrees with a heat index schedule, putting you well over 100 degrees. That means there will be no work done in the state of New Mexico outside from June until September. So it's wrought with all kinds of problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the simple things when actually people on the ground who are working have a say in this. And again, the reason we bring this story up and the reason I think it's so important is because it's emblematic of a bigger issue in the state that we have to get our arms around. And that is that we have to work with our business community to make this state more competitive. Because if the activists get to come in and say we're making a million rules, then guess what? All the big businesses, all the big employers, all the people that can take low-income families and lift them up to the middle class are going to go away. And then all that's going to be left are the rule makers and the nags to tell everyone you don't get to do that here. And if you do that to enough people, you don't have health care, you don't have jobs, you do not have a life where you can build it with your family. And so that's just a fact. And I hope we're waking up to that in this state because it affects people of every single political party. So we move on.
Okay.
The next person, by the way, more activists. Let's get a taste of more activism.
I have no idea why this person...
I can't wait for you to comment on this.
I know.
Because, okay, let's let you comment on this. Here's what I mean again by the activists. They keep going. Okay, they're mad about this.
Why do we have a comment from the American Federation of Teachers Union?
Well, just go read this thing directly from this is the verbiage used here by this union rep is unbelievable. Go ahead.
So Whitney Holland, she's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, New Mexico, described the pushback as typical from industries that are prioritizing work over workers.
Okay, hold on right there. That's the attitude of we want to fight with employers so that we have less jobs in the state of New Mexico.
It's unbelievable.
This fight like this is what these activists do, and they destroy the state. They destroy it for all of us. Go ahead.
So her quote is, "I don't understand what it's going to take to turn the tide on that narrative. The union is supporting the rules due to what Holland describes as, quote, unfathomable working conditions, with schools starting earlier every year and some buildings not even having air conditioning on yet."
Okay. You teach in a portable classroom.
Which is hot, I will say.
Okay. Are the conditions unfathomable?
No, it's just hot. So you do have to deal with that. You bring in what you can to try to make the room cool.
Which is what?
I put up dark curtains on all the windows.
You have an air conditioning unit that
I have a window, like a little window unit, yes, that can make air. You can survive in it, for crying out loud, you know.
Right.
And then you have fans. We put fans in there, and then I put the darkening curtains up there that I keep closed most of the time when it's super hot. So there's a way to get around this. I mean, I'm not saying that that there's no way that maybe there's places that are even hotter than this. But give me a break on this whole, and why she's in this. Like, what are the teachers going to do? Do they need to go and take 15-minute water breaks during these?
Well, no, and agreed. We don't want a classroom where it's 80 degrees for kids. You can't concentrate. I totally agree with that.
Right. And I will tell you
but that's not what this would do.
No.
So.
And most teachers are smart. Like, if there's a way that we can get more circulation into a classroom, if we need to take them to a shaded tree to talk about something, we do those kind of things. I mean, there's different ways to work around this, for crying out loud.
Well, no, also, we have enough money in this state to provide cooling units for these. That has nothing to do with making a new rule so that everything stops down.
Notice in the quote, it didn't say about that they don't have air conditioning. She just said that the air conditioning units haven't been turned on yet.
Well, okay, let's go ahead and turn them on earlier. I totally agree. We can all support that, but supporting this is ridiculous. So then we get back to the timeline on this whole thing.
Okay, so NMED published the draft heat rule in March and initially had a July hearing before the State Environmental Improvement Board, the entity within NMED that adopts and rules like this. But after several groups presented strong support or opposition to the rule, NMED extended the timeline for the rulemaking, and the EIB pushed the hearing to November and then again to January due to scheduling conflicts, according to the NMED spokesperson.
Okay, so they're pushing it back. By the way, this is the author of the article, slanting the article a little bit. But after several groups presented strong support or opposition. They did not push this back because they're getting strong support for it.
No.
They push it back because they're getting strong opposition to it. Again, a little disingenuous, always wanting to tweak this in that direction. But the point is this. If you are a business owner in this state, if you're somebody who cares about working families, getting good jobs, contact the New Mexico Environment Department and continue to give your opinion because it is making a difference. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely making a difference. So stand up and speak for the people of this state. Again, nobody wants anyone to collapse because of heat stroke. There are things that can be done. This is the wrong thing to be done. Do not let people who want to keep business and employees fighting, and so we don't have businesses anymore, from succeeding in this. Don't let them do it. It hurts the state. It hurts families of every stripe.
And we've had 2 other episodes where we have discussed this in great detail. So you can go back and listen to prior episodes on that as well, where we talked about that as well. So, okay, let's get on to some more international news, shall we? Because this is definitely the leading story everywhere, anywhere, any news station that you turn on. And this is Israel striking Iran and then Iran coming back to Israel. I mean, this is heating up very quickly.
Yeah.
So
if you remember back since October of 2023, when Iran basically Iran's the number 1 state sponsor of terror in the world. Okay, they go and they prop up other groups with arms and support to try to create terror. That's what they do. Their goal is to wipe out the nation of Israel. Their goal is to wipe out America. That's their goal. They've said it. I'm not saying anything they haven't said themselves. And so Israel really had never responded to Iran in any sort of significant way. Remember, Iran launched hundreds of missiles at Israel during the Biden administration. Israel and the United States basically shot them all down. And then Biden told Netanyahu, take the win. And Netanyahu's like, no, because they are watching, and the Israelis are watching, the Mossad is watching what Iran is doing with nuclear weapons. And so they see the progress they're making. Iran, again, take them at their word because they say it. They want to wipe Israel off the map. So when they get a nuclear weapon, that's what they will do. And so Israel knows this. And so they got down to a time frame here where they were continuing to enrich uranium at a frightening rate to the point where it was getting very, very close to them having a bomb. So Benjamin Netanyahu stands up and says, we're not going to let that happen. So here's what he said to Brett Baer on Fox News. It is clip 9 on why they stepped in now.
That they intend to give these nuclear weapons to their Houthi proxies and others. And that's nuclear terrorism on a global scale. It threatens everyone. And the last thing is they have plans to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. Right now, 8,000 kilometers, very soon, just out a little distance, and they can reach the eastern seaboard of the United States. These people who chant death to America, try to assassinate President Trump twice, killed 241 of your Marines in Beirut, killed and injured thousands of American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, try to bomb a restaurant in Washington, D.C., chant death to America, burn the American flag. Do you want these people to have nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to your cities? Of course not. Yeah. So we're defending ourselves, but we're also defending the world.
The world. Okay. So for those of you who think, do they really know this? Do the Israelis really know this? It's kind of a funny joke on X. So look at this little tweet. The joke among Iranians is that no one knows in Iran where the Ayatollah is except Israel because they have such good intel in what's going on in Iran. And again, you're talking about a government that terrorizes the Middle East.
Yeah, and explain that a little bit just for the people who don't know. They have been funding Hezbollah. Right. And Hamas, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the Houthis.
And the Houthis.
By the way, all 3 of them. Okay. All 3 of them attacked Israel.
So on top of building what we believe they have several nuclear bombs.
They're getting close to them, right? Okay. So basically they have to enrich the uranium to a certain point. And then once they get it to that point, that's the big hurdle. Because once you get it to that point, then you can get it onto a delivery system, a warhead, basically. And once you do that, look out, right? Then it's Katie bar the door, and if you don't shoot that thing down, you could be looking at millions of people dead in one foul swoop. Okay. So that's why it's so critical. But you mentioned, which is a good point, it's the Houthis, Hamas, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they do everything they can to spread terror. It's the reason that there's such conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran and places. A bunch of their neighbors are terrified of these guys because of what they've done in their slide into a country that most of the people in this country don't want the government that they have. And we'll get to that, which is amazing stuff. But I want to get to a opinion piece on the Wall Street Journal that you've talked about. Mm-hmm. And this is going to sort of make some of this clear. And really what this gets to is the incredible miscalculation of the leadership in Iran.
So here's the headline. It says, one Iranian miscalculation after another. The Tehran regime pays the price for underestimating Netanyahu and Trump. And then it says here, how did Tehran miscalculate so badly? For months, President Trump made clear that he wanted to avoid a military confrontation and make a nuclear deal. He all but begged the regime to come to terms. And his envoy, Steve Witkoff, made a generous offer, too generous, that would have let Iran continue enriching uranium domestically for some years. Ayatollah Ali
Ayatollah Khamenei.
Okay. Dismissed it out of hand. Who are you to decide whether Iran should have enrichment, he asked. The Iranians evidently thought that they would pay no price for blowing past the president's 60-day ultimatum and his red line on nuclear enrichment. So long as they kept talking, they presumed they could string along Mr. Trump, who would shield them from Israel. Tehran underestimated Mr. Trump, who knew Israel's plan but declined to expose or block it. Democrats now criticize him for that, and a different president may well have prevented Israel's campaign to eliminate the Iranian sword of Damocles.
Damocles. Yeah, sorry. I've read this like 4 times, so that's the only reason I know that.
That looms over its head and ours. Instead, Mr. Trump kept a flexible enough posture to embrace the attack after its early success. The Iranians also underestimate Prime Minister Netanyahu, who bet on Mr. Trump has paid off. After direct ballistic missile attacks on Israel in April and October of 2024 were parried, Mr. Netanyahu didn't, quote, take the win, as President Biden had advised. He knocked out Iran's key air defenses, creating a window for today's air campaign with Mr. Trump in power.
Okay, so right there, let's just start with the chain of events here. And just remember something, and I want to get to that. They go on to talk about, in this quote, they go on to talk about what really happened. This is a good example of what happens when you start stepping into a war, you don't know where it's going to go. So when Hamas went over into Israel with a ragtag group of people and absolutely slaughtered more than 1,000 Israelis for absolutely no reason, when they did that, that set into motion a chain of events that wiped out Hamas, okay? That wiped out Hezbollah, because what happened was then the Israelis went after Hezbollah. And again, they had incredible intelligence. And they went, the beepers exploding, the walkie-talkies exploding, and they figured out where all their missiles were, and they wiped them out. Mm-hmm. Okay, the biggest proxy, the biggest fighter for Iran, Hezbollah, which Iran gave them missile after missile, they were toast and they were gone. Syria fell, right? Assad's gone. All of a sudden, they're not there for Iran. And then Iran launches all these missiles toward Israel, and the United States, and especially Israel themselves, shoot them all down. All of a sudden, Iran's looking around, and then Israel says, let's find out how good their air defenses are. They go in there and find out their air defenses are terrible. So they go wipe those out, and then Israel knows when we go in there, we've got air superiority. So all of a sudden, these big tough guys in Iran who are going and pushing everybody around, let's be careful, let's cut a deal with them. All of a sudden, Israel has exposed them for the phonies that they are. And now Iran's going to have an issue because Iran's going to have a choice to make. And we're going to get to that in just a second, but let's go to clip 15. Which is toward the end here. Do you want to add something?
No.
Okay.
Good.
Go to 15.
So Mr. Trump says Iran has a last chance for a deal. So how about this? Dismantle Fordo and the rest of the enrichment program right now or lose them, and much more by force. Iran doesn't hold the cards here, and its leaders would be wise to take such a deal. And if history is a guide, they will refuse and suffer more defeats.
Yeah, so Fordo is it's their big nuclear facility, but it's underground. Okay? So start doing a little research here. And what's it going to take? So the Israelis have a bunch of our fighter jets, the F-35s, right? They have a bunch of F-16s. They have a bunch of great munitions. I shouldn't say great, but very effective munitions that can hit the target they want to hit, okay? But what don't they have? Let's go to 16. What they don't have is a plane to deliver a massive bomb, and that is the B-2. Okay, this is our big bomber. Our biggest one is still, our B-21 is still coming, but the B-2 is what basically would carry the type of bomb that could go into the ground and destroy everything that the Iranians have with their nuclear program. The bomb is called the GBU-57. It's one of the munitions. Okay, there's a bunch of things you would do, but let's go to clip 17. So the GBU-57 is a massive bunker buster bomb. Okay, and this thing, it basically has set of little wings on it, and they drop. You can only fit 2 of them, by the way. You can only fit 2 of them in a B-2. That's how big they are. Okay, but they drop them out, steer them in, and they're a precision-guided munition, and they go way down into the ground, like stories and stories down into the ground. Okay, they can go hundreds of feet into the ground.
Okay,
and explode. So that would be what it would take to finish this whole thing off. So for us in the United States, this thing can go 200 feet into the ground and then explode. Okay, so that is the kind of thing that is exactly what is needed to finish this whole thing off.
These graphics are actually very helpful.
Yeah.
If you're listening, it might be worth tuning into our YouTube channel to watch these missiles.
And there are 3 different, levels here, okay? The first one is the BLU 109, basically, or I-09. It's a 2,000-pound bomb, okay? That can be used as well, but that was developed in the 1970s, and it goes down into the ground, about 5 feet, okay? And then we'll explode, okay? But then the second bomb, which was the GBU-28, that goes down further. There's no doubt. It can go down up to, I believe, something like 20, 30 feet, okay? And that will then explode. And that's a 2-story building, by the way, 20 feet. Okay. So don't lose sight of that. But then the GBU 57 is a whole different animal altogether. This is the massive bomb that would go down to 200 feet down.
So regardless of how deep this bunker is,
it's a 20-story building.
So there's no way they're deeper than that.
They could be to some degree, right? But if you get down in they think that's enough. Put it that way. Now, how many, what order would they go in with these things? How would it work? I don't know any of that. Okay, so I don't pretend to be an expert on that. But what this tells you is we may well have to get involved.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you. So these are the bombs that we would be supplying, and we would be
we would fly the plane. They don't have B-2s.
Okay,
all right.
And
we're the only ones with a
bomber,
B-2,
right? This is considered our stealth bomber.
Yeah. It's your big right. And the B-21 is the next generation of this, which is being developed right now. That would not be involved in this. Apparently, it's not ready yet. So let's start with Tom Cotton on CBS's Face the Nation this morning, talking about President Trump keeping options open for whatever the United States may need to do.
In terms of the line he's drawing on military force, should the U.S. involvement be purely defensive and deterrent, or should the U.S. be willing to be engaged in these military operations?
Well, I don't think he's drawn that line. He's been very clear that all options remain on the table to defend our own people, to support Israel. But he said that for 10 years, and he said it for months leading up to this moment. He said that Iran can make a deal and live happily without death, or there will be bombing. So I think he's appropriately kept all options on the table. He made clear in the early days of this conflict on Thursday night and Friday morning that we back Israel to the hilt. There's almost 700,000 Americans in Israel at any time, so of course we're going to protect Israel, and that we have the best military technology in the world. And he said that he has proudly provided Israel with those weapons, both in his first term and in this term as well. So we back Israel to the hilt all the way, but he's appropriately keeping all options on the table.
Okay. All options are on the table. Now, one person who has been very clear on this, and he's somebody that some people in the Republican Party have a problem with because they feel he's too gung-ho to get into military conflict, and that's Lindsey Graham. But I think what Lindsey Graham says here is interesting. Same deal, Face the Nation. He was on with Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut, who we'll get to in a second, by the way, who started to make a little pivot here, which I think you'll find to be interesting. But here's what Graham said about what needs to be done and how they've come this far. The Israelis have come this far. We've supported them this far. And to go this far without eliminating Iran's nuclear capability would be a significant mistake.
Senator Graham, you said you believe it's in America's interest to go all in to help Israel finish the job. It sounds like you mean offensive support.
So the worst possible outcome for the world is for the Iranian nuclear program to survive after all this. How do you destroy their program? Through diplomacy? I prefer that, or through military action. If diplomacy is not successful and we left with the option of force, I would urge President Trump to go all in to make sure that when this operation is over, there's nothing left standing in Iran regarding their nuclear program. If that means providing bombs, provide bombs. If that means
busting bombs?
Whatever bombs. If it means flying with Israel, fly with Israel. The worst possible outcome for the world is to take the Iranian nuclear program on and leave it standing. That will be a disaster.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear. I mean, I'm not quite sure why that would be controversial. I mean, it's
as controversial for some Republicans as it is for Democrats, and I like the Tucker Carlsons of the world are going to lose their mind, and who cares if he loses his mind? But yeah, no, I agree with you.
I guess I'm not clear on why we would allow them to keep this when they are the number one backed terrorist organization, country, whatever you want to call them in the world. Why are we like, yeah, sure, go ahead and build those nukes? I don't understand why we would be okay with that.
Well, no, you're right. I don't think we would. And so it will be a very simple choice for them. You either destroy that nuclear program or we'll destroy it for you. So if you would like to destroy it, that's what he means by diplomacy. He means going in there and saying to the mullahs, okay, this is over. So if you would like to bring in inspectors, we'll dismantle everything and you're done. Or we're going to destroy it for you. And that's what the Wall Street Journal piece was saying. They've shown no ability to be able to make that choice and say, okay, we're done here. Let's get rid of it.
Well, weren't they kind of hiding from the UN for years too? They weren't being as transparent about their operations to start with. So are they trustworthy to start with? Like, are we like, oh yeah, let's trust what they say?
Well, I think this situation would be you'd bring people right in on the ground and just dismantle the whole thing. I mean, this is a whole different level of they're in a spot now where they have no options.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Then why would Tucker Carlson or any other folks? I guess I'm missing. No,
he has totally changed his. He's one of these people who used to say Iran is the number one state sponsor of terrorism in the world. It's a terrible government with great people that have taken advantage of their people for decades now and created this terrorist enabling state, which is horrendous. Remember, in Iran, you have an economy which has been destroyed by sanctions. The people of Iran are suffering. Because the world as a whole is like, no, we're not doing business with you. You're done. And so, yeah, China does and Russia does because they're bad actors. But as a general rule, if you could welcome Iran into the world community again and remove all the economic sanctions and you have a government that allows them freedom, holy cow. Now, we've changed our thoughts in this country that we can't go in there and give them freedom, right? They have to approach this and try to do it themselves. But that's what we're getting to in all of this, that I think we may be looking at a situation where the people of Iran could well fit that moment and meet that moment and get more freedom. But I do want to say this. Richard Blumenthal was on with Lindsey Graham as well. And we've gone after people like Blumenthal before when it's the whole Trump believes in it, so I don't, right? So they take the other side. Mm-hmm. Well, Blumenthal did not do that with Iran. There's no doubt, which was smart. So he was more nuanced for the Democratic response to this, which I think made some sense.
Okay, well, let's take a listen to him.
Blumenthal, what's your view? How involved should the U.S. get?
Let's begin with the basic proposition that ought to motivate American policy as well as the world's. A nuclear-armed Iran is an unacceptable threat to the world, not just to Israel, but to the United States as well. And I support Israel's right to defend itself against this existential menace. I'm very concerned right now about United States personnel in the region, our servicemen and women, but also the civilians that are there. I'm getting phone calls from families in Connecticut who are deeply worried about their children who were there, about the hostage families. I support the president's effort to prioritize diplomacy.
He's played it. Oh, so Blumenthal there. That's the kind of thing. I think that's smart. Look, you're not saying go President Trump because they don't like him. I get it.
Right.
He's not your guy. That's totally fine. That's politics. But at the same time saying, yeah, we support some of what he's doing here. Because that down the road, again, taking the opposite side of Trump every time hasn't worked for them. It's been a horrible approach. So this is a little bit smarter. And then you look at this and you say, okay, at the end of the day, you cannot have a nuclear, armed Iran. Now, some of the other stuff with people there that are concerned across the world, right? And if I'll tell you this much, Iran is not going to attack any U.S. interest out. They would be like it would be over within 2 hours. Their nuclear program would be toast, and they'd not only have Israeli planes flying with impunity over Iran, which they are now, they'd have U.S. planes doing it too. They I think must realize that's not going to happen. So I understand Blumenthal's concern, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen.
Okay, well here we go with John Fetterman again. I'm kind of making some sense out there once again. Our commitment to Israel must be absolute, and I fully support this attack. Keep wiping out Iranian leadership and the nuclear personnel. We must provide whatever is necessary, military, intelligence, weaponry, to fully back Israel in striking Iran.
Smart.
Yeah.
I mean, our guy. He's our guy now.
I don't even know how he's. It's kind of crazy because he's such a Democrat. Like he really is. So he's not like he's some middleman, but he seems to be
smart. And it's just
he just keeps making sense. Like it's kind of crazy. So
but that shows you where we are in our politics now.
Right.
That it's so oppositional that when you sit there and we used to be like, hey, look, politics ends at the water's edge, right? That used to be a statement.
Right.
It used to be real, and it's not anymore. But in this situation, I think I'm just saying that we take Blumenthal, you take Fetterman, you take those. Now there's some other people who are way out there that are, I think, off the charts, and there, there's some issues there. But that does make some sense. And when you look at the numbers, the polling numbers on this, if you look at it, the numbers are very, very strong.
Yeah, it says here, the question was, if no acceptable deal with Iran is reached over its nuclear weapons, should the administration support or oppose an Israeli effort to take out Iran's nuclear weapons program? 60% are in support of doing so.
Yeah, it's very strong stuff. I will say, for all the people that have a problem with Trump or whatever, he has handled this one to this point masterfully. Not jumping in too quickly and not pulling back and not letting Israel do what they have to do to keep themselves safe.
Right.
He has walked that line brilliantly. He deserves credit for that.
Right. And especially since, it has basically been pinpointed that the attacks on him personally,
they tried to kill him.
That it was Iran that wanted him dead.
Yeah.
So, he could be like,
look out, we're going to
take you out. And
right.
He's not doing that.
No, he gave them every chance not to have this be the result.
Right.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And you can say, I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. If you don't see what he's done here to this point and man, that is handled very well. Then you just hate him so much you can't see straight. I don't know what to do for you on that.
Right.
All right. But that's what that is. So now the question becomes, where do we go from here, and what could be the result of right where we are now with the Iranian government, and they're kind of teetering a little bit?
Right. Well, Netanyahu has a message for the Iranian people. He spoke very clearly here again with Bret Baier, and he wants a regime change to come from within. That's kind of his end game. So take a listen to this one.
Mr. Prime Minister, very last thing. I asked you how long this may last. You said it's up to the Iranians. If you had the opportunity, and you do now, to speak directly to the supreme leader and to speak directly to the Iranian people, what are those two messages you'll say?
Well, the Iranian dictator, really, he's a dictator. He's a tyrant. He has sent us a message calling just about every day for the death of Israel, the destruction of Israel and America, but the death of Israel. So my answer to him is with action, not with words. But to the people of Iran, I say you're great people. You're people of great talent and genius. You have been usurped by this tyranny that has robbed you of hope, has robbed you of a good life. I speak to the Iranian people directly. I don't know if you know this, Brett. I do these videos. I get millions and millions of responses. And they say, Viva Israel, bravo Israel, free us from this tyranny. And I say to them, your hour of freedom is near. Rise up, be free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful statement.
Right.
He's a tremendous communicator. Obviously, he does, he speaks to Americans in English, and then obviously he speaks to his own people, and he speaks to Iranians. It is unbelievable. So one other little note here. I want to have you listen to Christiane Amanpour, who is from Iran. She's no, huge supporter of Israel and everything, but she says some pretty interesting things here about what the people of Iran have been through in the past 40 years and how there is opposition in Iran. There's one big oppositional figure who may have a chance at seizing that moment to bring a type of government and a type of life that is more representative of the people of Iran. It was an interesting comment she made earlier today.
Difficult to rise up actually being in the streets while the bombs are falling and fighter jets, with missiles are coming down. But there is no doubt, and Pahlavi is right, and everybody who's reported it. I grew up under the Pahlavis in Iran, and the people, first of all, chose the Islamic Republic instead of them, but now have seen that the Islamic Republic is so much harsher, is so much more punitive, gives so much fewer rights, and is isolated from the world, and the economy is appalling, and it affects the people. So yes, I think From all my reporting, they want to change. He's the only one with name recognition, and whether it's for transitional or permanent leadership, I don't know what he wants, but he's considered the only one with any name recognition and any kind of support inside. He talked about the military. We know the Bazaris and people like that, potentially. But one thing to Hugh, and you have to say it, the people of Iran have been demonized and dehumanized, always associated with their leadership. The people of Gaza have been dehumanized and delegitimized. They don't want Hamas there. We've seen them on the streets under the hail of bombs. So it's not fair to have this collective punishment, and people should have their rights.
So I think some of that gets a little wonky on her end, but I do think a lot of people have said the Iranian people don't deserve this. And you talking about a country with incredible potential if they get the opportunity to go after that. And this could present that moment. So that's why we spent so much time on this today, because I think it's a massive, massive thing where there could be an opportunity here going forward where the Iranian people could get freedom again. But it's going to have to come with their own effort. You know, we've learned that enough in this world that we can't come in and give it to you.
Well, and
we've screwed that up enough.
I mean, her last comment there. You know, the folks in Gaza voted in favor of Hamas as their political leadership.
Yeah, well, and again, the Islamic Republic was chosen, right? But people make mistakes.
Yeah,
and I think her point is they made a mistake. And they know it now. They've known it for decades now. And you have a huge contingent of Iranians who look at this and go, this isn't right. This isn't right. So we'll see what ends up happening with it. It is something that's a change that in our lifetimes would be massive. If you took Iran as an enemy off the table and you unleash that country in a way where they could take advantage of their potential, it'd be amazing. And the Israelis could be the central portion that tipped the scale on that and allowed it to happen. So we are obviously big Zionists here. We make no secret of that. Right. But you know, seeing this happen and seeing what the Israelis have done and seeing what the Americans have done to bolster the Israelis' ability to be able to do this, I think is something that I think God has the United States in the position it does. Part of that reason is to help Israel. Yeah. I do believe that. And so
if you haven't read your scriptures on supporting Israel, you need to read your scriptures because it's very laid out very clearly.
We're clear on that. So
yeah, you want to be on the right side of that one. I'm just saying, like, there's if you believe in scripture at all, if you make sure you understand that part of it. Well, let's talk about something that maybe was a nothing burger. I don't know if it was or not. Right?
Yeah, or just kind of a thing, right? Or
maybe just a thing. I don't know. This No Kings protest took place, I believe, in about 1,800 cities. I think.
And they said 5 million people, which okay.
Okay. So I still think what's interesting is a lot of people, when asked, especially on X, I was looking at X, what do you not like about Trump's policies? Like, what are you specifically protesting? A lot of people that were asked that question couldn't really answer it, which I thought was that stood out to me a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
And then again, it's kind of, at least what I keep seeing, and I think the mayor of LA is just not helping matters, quite frankly, with some of her verbiage on just saying, even her Father's Day message today was about she feels so bad for those that are being separated from their children by ICE officials who are going in and taking the fathers away. I think some of that kind of misses the mark of, once again, like, what about the people and the fathers that have had to bury their loved ones here that have been, killed by people here that are here illegally, for instance, right? So I just feel like, once again, you have certain leaders that are propelling these type of protests. Now, I would say in most cases, this seems to be fairly peaceful, I would say.
Yeah, I think these largely were. Some of the stuff we saw in LA got a little dicey, but yeah, as a general rule, I think it was largely peaceful.
You're right. It kind of, I think the one that I saw mainly that got a little spicy at the end was in LA, and that's because they started going after a federal building, and once that happened at the end, police moved in and were like, no.
I think your description of it getting spicy is funny. So the other question was, in some of this is, how much of this is organic? And you mentioned hey, what's your biggest problem with Trump? And you're getting the answer of a blank stare and glossed over. The question becomes, how organic is it?
Well, a Vice reporter was actually on ABC this week with Jonathan Karl, and basically an answer kind of slipped in there that I don't think Jonathan was quite prepared for. So take a listen to this, and then we'll talk about it.
Who's actually spent a lot of time with the protesters over this past week. We saw the president say these are professional protesters paid by George Soros, et cetera, et cetera. Who were these people? What was going on?
A lot of them were normal people who were mad. We hung out with a group from Alaska who was very specifically talking to Lisa Murkowski. A lot of them were Native Americans, which also played into Lisa Murkowski's decision. They actually felt a lot of respect for her because she brought them into their office. She had a real conversation with them. And we also saw people who were organized. And that moment with Jeff Flake on the Hill, we talked to one woman who works for Ultraviolet, who was paid. She helped steer people in the right ways to be able to confront senators.
So there were paid...
There were people who were paid by organizations like Ultraviolet to try to harness that energy in a way that would make the viral moments that we ended up seeing.
So, Rachel...
Okay. So that is the most charitable way you can describe that. She's like, she was mildly honest about it.
Mildly.
Right?
But it's like, yes, they're absolutely...
Jonathan Karl did not anticipate that answer. You're right. He was like, whoa, wait a minute.
He was not expecting for her to say that. And he probably thought she would just ignore the fact. But it's so well known that a lot of these protesters are paid. A lot of the protesters were paid in BLM movement. That's all come to light now. So this should not shock anybody that a lot of these people are paid to show up.
To create viral moments.
Right. To create viral moments, otherwise known as protesting. I mean, we even know that some of the people that were on UNM's campus during some of the protests going on there, they were also paid. They're not even from here. They're brought in and they're paid hourly to protest. So at that point, I feel like you lose the feel of the 1960s protest when people start comparing this to,
hand out the cash.
Yeah,
where's
to the
cash? Give me cash.
1960s, Crosby, Stills, and Nash days. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm like, this is not even remotely the same. This is like, how much chaos can we create? What is the motive? The motive is we hate America 9 times out of 10, or we don't like Trump 9 times. Well, why do we not like Trump? We don't really know. We're paid to be here and we don't like Trump, right? And so we're just going to protest for the sake of protesting. So I hope people are really waking up and are more aware of what's actually taking place at these protests, And
it gets to a broader point, which is what to believe anymore. Because it's so hard when you're watching things you don't know what to believe. And so that's what makes a media structure that tries to get to the bottom of the true set of facts important. And again, there's now a right-wing ecosphere where we definitely see more conservatives having a voice saying, here's what's really going on. And that's definitely helped conservatives to be more informed. And in some places, it's definitely helped moderates become more informed to be like, okay, I get it. Like this whole media narrative is not right. And that's why I think down the road, there's still going to be an avenue for a media structure that is solely interested in the truth. And as that happens, I think it will be helpful. So that's what we have for today. It's interesting to see how it all shakes out, and we'll see what happens with it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I still think, you have to have a media that is interested in the truth. And still far too often, they're interested in pushing their own political ideology versus getting the truth out there. And the more you get the truth out there, I still think there's a sustainable path for media. But for plenty of them, it's not working out. So that's where we're at. And that's what we got. So again, we will not be here on Wednesday, but we will be back on Sunday. So we hope you will join us then. And then do you have some?
Well, I was trying to find this comment that I wanted us to talk about, but it's going to take you a minute to find it. So no, don't worry about it. We'll bring it up next time.
We got it. Save it up. I mean, that'll be. We'll start the show with it next time.
We'll start it. I'll get to it next time. It just dawned on me. But you guys have a great week. And don't forget, if you have any comments that you want to make right on our YouTube channel, you can do that. Or you can send us an email at info@nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Also, make sure to sign up for our emails on our website, which is nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great rest of your week.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.